Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Logan Cobbs, Director of Communications for the City of Corpus Christi. Thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon as we discuss a very important topic. At this time, I would like to introduce our City Manager, Peter Zenon, to discuss our plan to delay water restrictions moving into Stage 2. Peter?
Great, thank you, Logan, and good afternoon, everyone. I am Peter Zenon, the City Manager, and we appreciate the media and some of our guests and council members being here this afternoon. We have an important message to convey to our community, actually to the region, as the city is the regional water provider. So before I begin, though, I did want to recognize the council members that are here. We have City Council District 1 and Mayor Pro Tem, Councilman Everett Roy is here. And we also have City Council District 2, Sylvia Campos is here as well. Some of our other partners that are here with us is Brian Williams, the President, CEO of Sampat Water, Municipal Water District. They're a large user and distributor of water that they get from us. So Brian, we appreciate you being here as well. We also have our Chief Operating Officer here with us from Corpus Christi Water, and that's Drew Molly. Drew is here. So as we know, the city, through its Corpus Christi Water Department, is the regional water planner, producer, and distributor. So we provide water quite unusual for a city to numerous customers outside our city limits. In fact, the city, through Corpus Christi Water, provides water to customers in 7 different counties in our coastal bend, making us a very unique water district. That means that every day we're providing water to over 500,000 people in our region. So one of the key things that we do, our team does every day, in addition to producing and distributing water, is manage and monitor water levels. And so in the city of Corpus Christi and in our distribution network, the water that we use is entirely surface water, meaning water from rivers and lakes. And so we have 2 regions where we get the water from. Western reservoirs, primarily from Nueces River, and then on the east, Lake Texana, as well as the Colorado River, the lower Colorado River. Those waters are all surface waters. We can see them, as opposed to an aquifer, groundwater. So daily we monitor levels, and the city council approves a plan to manage that, as they are the policy setters. So in what we call our drought management plan, our drought contingency plan, there are certain prescribed levels when we trigger restrictions on water use. And those levels are based on the combined resources at 2 of our western reservoirs, the 2 that are in the west. So that does include Lake Corpus Christi and Choke Canyon. So each day we combine the levels and we see where they are. So an important message for today is today's reading that we received by looking at our monitoring devices is below 30%. It fell below 30% for the first time in many years, probably over 10, Esteban. And since 2015, they haven't been this low. So that's about 9 years. So once they get below 30%, certain things are supposed to or could happen. So today's reading was 29.9%, the combined level. So in our drought contingency plan, there is delegation of authority to the city manager to trigger stage of water restrictions. And we know that in reading that plan and being familiar with it, once we get below 30%, as we are today, the city manager could enact stage 2 water restrictions. So we know that today, and for 583 days, we have been at stage 1 water restrictions. So back in June 14, 2022, we declared stage 1 water restrictions 583 days ago. And that has an impact primarily on our residential and commercial customers, and primarily it focuses on irrigation. And so with stage 1 water restrictions, customers can only irrigate their landscaping once a week. Stage 2, by contrast, makes that watering every other week. That is primarily the biggest difference between stage 1 and stage 2. There's also restrictions on golf course watering for private or city golf courses. So once we drop below 30%, as we did this morning, to 29.9%, we have the option to trigger stage 2 water restrictions. But the second message today is we're not doing that today. The city manager and myself, I am not doing that for the following reasons that we'll explain. So to our benefit, the weather forecast is in our favor beginning Sunday through potentially even next weekend, but at least the short-term forecast through next Thursday. So one part of our business protocol that we developed some time ago, we did not used to do this, but now we do, is that every week we get a weather briefing from the National Weather Service, who has a local office here at the San Antonio International Airport. They rent some space there. But weekly, and sometimes 2 or 3 times a week, depending on what's happening, we get a weather briefing from professionals at the National Weather Service. And we're very thankful for them, and I want to, on the record, tell the community that they're a great partner of ours. So in today's briefing that we asked for yesterday, the lead meteorologist has indicated, much that you can see today on your phones, but we have additional information that a significant rain event is setting up and will begin to rain over the watershed area. And this is an important point because we could have rain in the city proper, but if it doesn't fall some 45, 50 minutes from here to the north and west over Choke Canyon and Lake Corpus Christi, it is no good for us in our water distribution system. It may help us locally in our lawns and other means, but we need those reservoirs to rebound. So the weather system that is about to happen beginning Sunday all the way through Thursday with high certainty from the National Weather Service is going to be a pretty decent rain producer. Anywhere from 2.5 to 3 inches of rain is forecasted. Best case scenario, the saying. It could be better and it could be worse, but they're pretty confident somewhere between that range of 2.5 to 3. So what that will do, we are forecasting or modeling, is it will at a minimum hold our 29.9% level. It could go up just a slight bit potentially. But an important note to tell the community here is that recharge area and the 2 reservoirs are in drought, worse than here in the city proper in Nueces County. And so the soils are very dry, very parched, they're cracked, they're dry. So when we do get this 2.5 potentially to 3 inches of rain, that's just going to absorb into the soil. Most likely the runoff into the reservoirs is unlikely. And so we're not expecting to see any big rebound. We're expecting a leveling as we use water every day. That water will help to level off the level. So in addition to that, a third key point is that there is another rain system that they can see in the long range forecast beginning next Friday and beyond that could produce even more rain. And so the notion is that this first weather system will help to prepare the ground. It'll help to prep the ground, get the ground saturated. And then if a second rain event comes in next Friday, Saturday, potentially Sunday, that will help to elevate the levels in our reservoirs on the west. So because of that, knowing that we don't want to overburden or panic our customers, and so therefore today we're not calling stage 2 water restrictions for the reason that there's a very good indication we're going to see some measurable rain in 2 events that will not only stabilize the level close to that 29 to 30%, but it also may bring it up a little bit beyond the 30. So that is the message for today. Let me just see if there's anything else real quick. The only other thing is that we are, maybe just 2 other things. One is we're updating all of our information today that is on our website. This community, for the first time in ever, has access now every day to our water levels. There's a dashboard on the city's homepage website that lists these combined levels that I was speaking to you about. So our region, we encourage them to know what our levels are. Many Texas cities, the residents know how much water they have. They know how much is in the aquifer. They know how much is in their lakes, and we want to do the same here in Corpus Christi and in the coastal bend. So we will be updating our websites. We'll be putting out media releases. We'll be working with some of our large volume users, hospitals, the county, and others to let them know what our situation is today. And then secondly, and finally, next week, as the rain hopefully materializes, we'll be continuing to work with the National Weather Service to check amounts to see is the 2.5 to 3 inches happening? Is it likely to happen? And then is that second event setting up nicely to where it will actually happen? So we got to stay tuned, because next week, if the rain doesn't materialize, if that second storm doesn't materialize, if there's a forecasted indication that we're not getting what we thought we were going to get, and that levels will continue to drop, we most likely will call stage 2 next week. But that is to be determined with the actual evidence of the rain, and work with the National Weather Service and our own professional team members as we begin to model it. The key in all of this is managing our water resources. We've talked about this already in the past. We have a great conservation strategy for our customers to follow and use. We have a City Council approved conservation plan that's actually thicker and has more information than our drought contingency plan. And so we encourage conservation, but we encourage everybody to be aware of our situation, especially here in Corpus Christi and for our customers in 7 counties. Our water today is not drought-proof. It's all surface water. We are changing the narrative on that drought-proof scenario. Next week at City Council, we are recommending pathway forward for the construction of a seawater desalinization plant in the City Council selected site of the Inner Harbor. And so that narrative, that progressing forward on a drought-proof water source is on the City Council agenda next Tuesday. Coincidentally, there's 8 action items for City Council consideration next Tuesday to progress that more drought-proof water source forward. So that's maybe some good news in all of this information today. So with that, we're here for any questions the media may have. Myself, Drew Molley, Chief Operating Officer. We'll continue to work with the community. One of our mottos at City Hall here is transparency, openness, and communication with our residents and the region. So we'll continue to provide information as we move through this next week. And so with that, that concludes our briefing, and we'll take any questions that you might have. The groundwater you're talking about? Yeah, so the question was, are we looking at more than just seawater desalinization in terms of future water supply sources? And the answer is yes. And so there's several, but one in particular that you referenced is groundwater in a nearby aquifer known as the Evangeline Aquifer in Sinton, in San Patricio County, just a little bit north of Sinton. So just yesterday, we continued to negotiate with that business entity on that scenario for City Council consideration. We are working on with them a plan for close to 30 million gallons over a series of years of water that would come from that aquifer that would be used in our water distribution system. The seawater Inner Harbor desalinization plant, we're recommending a 30 million gallon per day plant be built there. So that would give us 60 million gallons of water should both materialize in the near future in the coming years. A key thing to note is that this city, the last major water source that we put into our system was Mary Roads Phase 2. And that was in 1988, 89, right, in the late 80s. Early 90s. So it's been three decades since we've added any water to our distribution system, which for a growing region is not acceptable, I would say. So we, in my 5 years here, have been working every day on alternative water sources. That includes our Inner Harbor desalinization plant, which I may add, national and international water experts have said that's your best choice here in our city. But we haven't stopped there. We've looked at the aquifer. We're looking at reuse, effluent reuse. Each day we discharge over 30 million gallons of treated wastewater into our bays, estuaries, and other water bodies, and that can be reused in some applications. So we're looking at that as well. And then thirdly, we're looking at a ground storage system as well, where in times of abundant rain, we can store water underground, as many cities do in Texas, and then when you're in these drought situations, you can extract it and treat it and use it. So.
Should those items pass at City Council next week on desalination, what's the timetable on that actually?
Right. So next week's items deal with construction and funding and power primarily, and so we benefit in that we applied for a low interest loan from the state agency known as the Texas Water Development Board. We beat out over 80 other applicants to save taxpayer and ratepayer monies here. So part of the action next week is to take the first loan amount of $211 million, to apply for additional loan amount to fully fund the construction. Now that five years has passed since we applied for the first amount of money. It also enables us to have AEP begin the construction of a power transformer, power plant, if you will, there. And so those are some of the main items. In the coming months, we will put out a request for proposal, if the council approves this method, to have a progressive design build firm help to design and construct the desalinization plant. Based on our consultant of record, Friesen Nichols' estimate, it would be 2027 when the plant would be fully operational. However, our goal is to begin work and construction as soon as we can. And so we're not going to wait 2 years if the council approves this methodology to begin construction. Rather, we would do some of the work now to include awarding a contract to AP Texas, or awarding dollars to AP Texas so they can begin the power configuration. We just said by note, because we'll be putting this out for the community, since the community might be listening now, we already have an approved permit for intake from TCEQ. We know we need an intake and a discharge permit. So the intake permit was approved a long time ago, or some time ago. Just recently, we were notified that the discharge draft permit is given to us. In fact, Drew Molly has a copy of the permit. In less than 30 days, we can hold a public hearing. We got notice that we can proceed with the public hearing. Then those other steps will continue on the discharge permit. So there's a public process, a due process that we encourage. But that discharge permit is looking good. Also from the federal government, from the agency that regulates water, we have a draft permit being issued pretty soon, or sooner than what we thought, that would clear that hurdle as well. So we have, the reason we're going to council next Tuesday is we have everything in order to progress forward. We don't recommend waiting for anything, for more review or for more time. This city staff and this city council has worked tirelessly for at least 5 years and many years beyond that in siting locations and in hiring Friesen Nichols. So we have the land under contract, we have the funds available, we have power available, and permits are nearing completion, and we need the water. So we're ready to move forward, and we're going to talk to City Council next Tuesday. Hopefully they are as well. Right. Right, so great change in recent times is more collaboration with the Port of Corpus Christi. Kent Britton met with us this week. We fully briefed him. He's the CEO of the Port of Corpus Christi. We briefed him on the 7 and 8, there's actually 8 if you count an executive session, but we briefed him on the 8 executive session items. He was already familiar with them and working with us weekly now for several months. But he's fully aware. One thing we did ask him is to consider helping fund some of the infrastructure. He's aware of that request in question, and he's beginning to work on it now to see, can the Port of Corpus Christi help fund some of the costs for the Inner Harbor desalinization plant. We have not ruled out, the city has not ruled out, nor has the port, the Harbor Island location. We continue to look at alternatives there. We continue to talk to world developers of desalinization plants, a method and an approach of how desal could be put there. So that's not off the table yet. Okay, great. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you, media, for covering it. And for those on social media, thank you for watching. That concludes our briefing.